G'day, and apologies to anyone who thought and hoped that I would do a reveal show to celebrate Warhammer Fest, especially with the Mystery Day. I was pretty confident that it was going to be an Age of Sigmar day. There was a little bit of doubt that it might be Middle Earth or some other type of game, but I was relatively confident, and it was going to be 3 o'clock in the morning here in Australia during the reveals. And given that it was also Mother's Day on the same day, I thought I'd be a little bit mature and go to bed and look at the reveals when I got up. So instead of doing a reveal party, I'm doing this video as my initial observations and thoughts when it comes to what we saw at Warhammer Fest, knowing that it was only a sneak peek into what's going to be coming very soon. And as always, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section on what you thought, what you took away, and maybe some of the predictions based on some of the things we already know, but maybe not fully revealed. Now, to help you get started with Age of Sigmar, because I know some of you are quite new to this, and Warhammer Fest really was announcing what's going to be 3rd edition, and you may not know that we're already in a 2nd edition. So Age of Sigmar was launched on the 4th of July, 2015, and that story was really the emergence from the Warhammer Fantasy Battles. It was a brand new game, and it was kind of focused around the Realm Gate Wars, where Sigmar was attempting to reclaim parts of the mortal realms after the Age of Chaos. So that kind of kicked us off in 2015. That was 1st edition. 2nd edition was 3 years later, and that came in July 2018, and that was based on something called the Soul Wars. The Soul Wars was really themed around the clash of Nagash versus the Stormcast for the struggle of souls. Nagash was not happy that Sigmar was reforging souls. Nagash thought they were his, and off the back of that, there was all these events like the Necroquake, and obviously there's been a lot of stuff that's happened. The stories just haven't been between two forces. 3 years on, again, so there's a bit of a reoccurring theme here. It's 3 years, 3 years, brings us to the middle of 2021. And we've got 3rd edition coming off the back of the Broken Realm series. We started with Morathi, then Teclis, Be'lakor, and eventually Kragnos is coming. So these books are leading into what's going to be 3rd edition Age of Sigmar. So what do we know so far about 3rd edition Age of Sigmar? And there's been a couple of videos, a bit of a live stream, and I'm sure we're going to learn more about it. But the fact that they wanted to introduce us, and Phil Kelly, one of maybe the head writer, I love Phil, really enjoy his content, had a good opportunity to chat to him once or twice, in real life. But Phil, talks about the fact that the mortal realms has been overrun by chaos. And despite what it looks like on the tabletop, because certainly when you go to a tournament, it's often the forces of order that are dominating compared to the other grand alliances. But in the story, we only really have 1 or 2 realms other than Azir where Sigmar and the forces of order have really started to cement, not completely dominate, but they've got a strong foothold. And that's ironically enough where the cities of Sigmar also feature, Gairan and Akshi. So all these other realms are really owned by other gods, other pantheons, and Sigmar is trying to beat back many of the grand alliances. And we have seen Archaon, we have seen Be'lakor, and they've been really kind of supercharged in the narrative. So it does make me wonder if we are told that this is still not the Age of Chaos, but the realms are really overrun by chaos, what that might mean to our chaos armies. And for anyone who may not know, some of the oldest battle tomes in our game right now would be things like Nurgle and things like Khorne. They're 2 of the older books. Yes, Idoneth Deepkin need an update. There's a few others as well, but that's 2 of the 4 primary chaos gods, sorry, Skaven, that require a new battle tome. So it does make me wonder, in addition to the new Slaanesh twins that are coming through, I think, Kragnos, what the Chaos Party is about to bring to the mortal realms. In addition to all of this, we started to hear about Gungnir, who is one of the 2 Duardan gods. So you might be more familiar with Grimnir. Grimnir is the I guess the fighter, or the more of the slayer god, and the fire slayers are fighting over Urgold to because it's meant to be fragments of their god. You've got the other side, and this is probably more towards the Kharadron overlords, and even the dispossessed side of Grimnir, who is the maker, the crafter god, and he has come to the aid of Sigmar in the past. He's made a number of things to help Sigmar, and I think last time we knew or heard about him, he was self-exiled and he was, chilling out, probably doing some meditation and some yoga. But he's been come back and is helping the Stormcast Eternals. And one of the big features is the new design of the Stormcast, this new Thunderstrike armor, which I really like. I was never really a big fan of the clunky Stormcast armor from the first and the second editions, but for me, this is kind of my style of Stormcast, so I'm a little bit skeptical of my wallet. I love the sleeker, more athletic design compared to that chunkier Stormcast, but hey, if you like the old Stormcast, power to you. I'm not saying it's crap, I'm just saying that it probably wasn't my style of Stormcast, and I'm really hoping that there's going to be a wide range of female and male heads in the kits, because to me, I'm someone who prefers the Stormcast without their helmets as opposed to the helmets. I don't know. For me, I just really like the character that comes with having and seeing the heads. These are meant to be some of the greatest heroes of past, present, and emerging. So for me, I want to see who's under the armor. But I love the shields. I love the armor. They are a little bit taller, I believe, and a little bit sleeker than the traditional Stormcast. But in addition, you have this new hero who is a champion of Sigmar, very similar to the Celestin Prime, Undrasa. And, her key thing is, as you can imagine, is she is a monster hunter. She's a legendary monster hunter who's really coming to lay the smackdown on behemoth keywords, I would imagine. That spear, that javelin, I imagine she's going to throw that from a mile away. And if that hits my monsters, I reckon it's going to be a bad day. But overall, we've seen the Stormcast and the influence of Grimnir, and I'm really excited about seeing what these people actually do in comparison to the other Stormcast chambers and the other Stormcast builds. We're kind of moving towards the monster theme, and surprise, we are going to be fighting in Ghur. The realm of beasts, or as Phil Kelly mentioned, we are entering the era of the beast. And within this era of the beast, we're hearing things like new cities. So the new cities of Sigmar. I don't imagine it's going to be a second edition. I don't imagine it's going to be an update to the cities of Sigmar. My prediction would be that it would be a second book, an independent book, and I'll explain a little bit more later. But, not on top of that, the new cities will have new gods. We've seen Kragnos, one of the new gods. I imagine there's going to be more gods than that. We'll have new protagonists. We'll have new wars. I imagine we're already kind of seeing, Archeon versus Be'lakor. I wonder if there's going to be, or even we saw Morathi kind of betray, Sigmar when we turned Anvilgard into Hakuron. So who knows what's going to come out of this story with Ghur. But, ultimately, I'm really excited about Ghur. And it's interesting because about a year ago, I wrote a narrative campaign. I was going to turn one of my grand tournaments into a narrative weekend. It was going to be a 2-day, very inspired by some of the events, the narrative events overseas, and like Realms at War. But I created this thing called the Allure of the Beastgrave, which had to be cancelled during COVID, but it was fighting around the treasures and the secrets of the Beastgrave Mountain. And it was really hard for me to find good lore other than within the Beastgrave Underworld's warband, other than there's a couple, there is an audio book about the Beastgrave. But for me, Ghur is this untamed savagery land where, the strong will survive. Only the strongest will survive. And I imagine everything in Ghur wants to kill you. And I imagine even things like the landscapes would be deadly. I imagine there are vines and swamps and beasts, and just literally like there might be a cute little bird that probably wants to kill you. So for me, this landscape, how do you bring the realm of beasts to the tabletop? And I'm super curious on how Games Workshop do this in the third edition. But we've also had people like Kragnos come to the table, and we don't quite know exactly what Kragnos is going to do just yet. But, there's probably going to be a lot more gods to be introduced. It kind of makes me wonder, is it just going to be a destruction gods? Given that, Gur is probably known as destruction, but, are there going to be other gods that are going to be a part of Gur? Will we see the Beasts of Chaos? I imagine there's a lot of Beasts of Chaos in Gur. Will we see maybe an updated book and updated gods and monsters and things in Gur? I imagine somewhere in Gur we have these mortal citizens, the humans that probably, I would imagine, are more probably barbaric, maybe not marauder barbaric, but certainly more human barbarian, almost like when Sigmar was just a simple barbarian at the start of Warhammer Fantasy. And if they are humans within Gur and they are more barbarian or Viking or something, who do they worship? Are they destruction focused? And are there monsters that we haven't seen on the table? And what are those monsters? And when I think about monsters, then I imagine eventually they die. And, if death comes into Gur with their necromancy, what skeleton or zombie monsters could be summoned, right? Terrorgeists come from the realm of shadow, and, they're crazy. They're crazy cool. Imagine what crazy monsters or, very dangerous monsters are sitting in Gur. I don't know. Either way, I'm really excited about the design potential and the interactions that Gur might bring to the tabletop. But also something that, as maybe an Age of Sigmar historian, I'll share with you if you haven't been around the game for this long, but it made me wonder if we're going to see another Seasons of War. And for anyone who hasn't been in the game for as long as I have, Seasons of War was a global campaign that was a part of Games Workshop around 2016 or 2017. I think it was 16, but feel free to let me know. But basically what it did was it was a global campaign that Games Workshop said to everybody, guys, everyone's fighting over some particular lands. And it was like there were 3 different lands that we were fighting over, these realms. And the Americas were one of the groups. I think it was like Europe and Europe and the UK, and then Australia and Asia. And all 3 of us as a group would submit our results, our games, like our literal battles. We'd submit results to Games Workshop on a website portal or at the game store. And at the end of the campaign, it would basically the results of the campaign, whether it was order, destruction, death, or chaos. We would force the narrative forward based on who won those 3 pockets, those 3 realms. And it was funny because off the back of the success, so Order won all 3 of them, by the way, all 3 of those regions, Order won. And it was off the back of that the narrative pushed forward till eventually the cities of Sigmar were created. The success of Order fighting back all the other factions allowed Sigmar to create, because we're fighting in Gairan actually. So long story short, it makes me wonder, right now Gur doesn't have Sigmar's real presence, and that's why we're kind of crusading into Gur. And it makes me wonder, once we spend some time in Gur, and should Order be successful or the narrative push forward in some way, will the mortal citizens form cities in Gur? And then that leads me to design questions of, well, what do the citizens look like? Are they bestial? Are they having like fangs and claws? Are they more marauder? Are they more Viking-esque? Are they, just covered in furs like maybe the space wolves, where, you've got a lot more of that bestial and primitive and even like more of a homogenous to the landscape. So who knows if the Seasons of War will come in. But one thing we do know is that in the era of the Beast, as a destruction player, I am cheering. Nothing is more fantasy than me than behemoths. And for me, the Mortal Realms is about the Gargants, the Stonehorns, the Star Drakes, the Man Crushers, the Stegodons, the Terrorgeists, the Squigs, and if we are moving into this era of the Beast, and like the fact that Udrasa, that monster hero, amazing Stormcast, is going to need some monsters to fight, right? I imagine that the monster meta or monster units are going to need to be more powerful than they already are. Monsters to me probably degrade a little bit too quickly. And the worst thing about monsters is you spend 300, 400, 500 point on a monster. And in 99% of the situations, unless you're a Gargant or a Stonehorn or a Beastclaw Raider player, is that one big Maw Crusher only counts as one towards an objective. So will we see monsters be more powerful? Will we see them count to objectives in a very different way? Will we see them even maybe have battle plans specific to focus around monsters? I don't know if we are going to go into a monster meta, but if we are entering the era of the beast and we are getting some more monster hunting, I wonder if this is going to be an opportunity to maybe really revisit the way monsters and behemoths play in Age of Sigmar, and that would be sweet. I would love to see more monsters, especially if some of the other rumored changes do come about. So we kind of saw a little bit about the Stormcast as well. You know, we've had this reforging of the Thunderstrike armor, and every edition of Age of Sigmar has brought with it a core box. You know, the core box is great value way to get your core rulebook, accessories like your dice and your measuring sticks. And it always comes with 2 armies to help you get started. Yourself and a friend can split the box, or you could start 2 armies, whatever it might be. You know, 2015 saw the Stormcast and the Blades of Khorne. It was the Mortal Khorne come in that starter box. 2018 was Stormcast versus Nighthaunt, so we saw more of the magic-themed Stormcast, you know, your Sequitors and things like that, versus the Nighthaunt in the Soul Wars. So it's fair to assume that 2021 is going to feature Stormcast again, and we've already seen some of these Thunderstrike armored Stormcast. We've seen more of this, but it makes me wonder what is going to be in the other side. And I've kind of already been showing you a little bit about. There was a preview video that was called the Stay Out of the Mere, and to me that looked very swampy. To me, that is definitely feeling Gur, and it's feeling very destruction. They haven't specifically said it's going to be destruction, but I'm only making the assumption that it's going to be destruction. So, you know, when I think about maybe because it's going to be a new army, it said that it was going to be a new evil, and it got me thinking, like, what could be a new evil? So we've already got Gargants, we've already got, you know, a couple of versions of Orcs, we've already got the Ogres, we've already got Gits, but what else could it be? And it got me thinking about some of the different options. And again, this is probably one of the opportunities that I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What do you think this second army could be? Is it going to be something like wolf riding goblins or hobgoblins? You know, we saw some really cool sculpts come out of the Underworld's warband. We had some of those wolf riding goblins, which I would love to see a whole new army based around. Are we going to see a relaunch of the Greenskins? That's a very classic orcs and goblins from Warhammer Fantasy, not your Ironjaws, not your Savage Oryx, more of your traditional orcs. So are we going to see like a new Wyvern, who knows, right? Like, but, you know, could it be one of those? Could it be, and Forge World started a project that never quite finished around the Fimir, and I know the Fimir has a very interesting background that would certainly have to be rewritten in the current Age of Sigmar, but, you know, will we actually see what was once the Forge World project in the Fimir move into a full Age of Sigmar army, or will we just take some of the aesthetics, because they are very swamp-like in their nature as well, so maybe we'll see something like that. And for me, history goes way back to the original Warhammer Fantasy, the Warhammer Quest box, so you can find it there. The other one that was kind of a bit of a smoky that's an interesting piece of lore, and I don't quite know, but it kind of made me interested. There was something called the Silent People. The top right-hand corner, there's that little logo there, and you might not know about the Silent People. It's not in the game yet. You can't find a model for them, but in the Beastgrave lore, you can read about what's called they're called the Silent People, and, you know, they're described and depicted as unsettling, and they're described as being very insect in nature and very ancient in their kind of ways of looking and acting. And I imagine if Kragnos, who again is the last of a former race, does he know or work with or is bringing to the party the Silent People? So I don't know. It's probably one of the things that I'm like, who's going to be in the starter box? But either way, I think it's going to be really cool. I'll be interested to see what they bring into the party. My guess would be probably either the greenskins or the like the hobgoblin or goblin on wolf. I just love that. I just love the Underworld's warband. The I can't remember Rip Snorter or Rips. I can't remember exactly the name, but I love that aesthetic, and I would love to see the Wolf Riders back. But I don't know if it quite matches the swampy nature that potentially we've seen. Some of the other things that we've kind of picked up is the fact that the rules have been revisited, and in one of the videos they mentioned that this edition will blow our socks off. I'm currently recording with no socks, so my socks indeed have been blown off or just not worn. But when I thought about some of the things that they've said in the videos and the discussions, they've mentioned that the core rules have been pulled apart, re-engineered, and they've added to it. So they haven't quite told us exactly what they're bringing or what they're going to be changing or what they're enhancing, but they have led on or dropped a few little nuggets for us. They've mentioned that the priority role is going to remain. And I just want to put my line in the sand and say that's a good thing. I know that there's been plenty of games that I've played where I've lost off the back of a double turn. It sucks. Sometimes I've won games off the back of the double turn. Yay for me. It's never always been like an awesome victory, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles. But as someone who's played since Age of Sigmar, the very first edition and, the very first General's Handbook, the priority role was a very exciting mechanic that allowed you to be unpredictable as opposed to, and I played Warhammer Fantasy Battles where it was you go, I go, you go, I go, you go. It was very predictive. The challenge that I've seen in second edition is that in second edition Age of Sigmar, that double turn has probably been more supercharged and more punishing than ever before. Not nearly the amount of tabling happened in the first edition. So revisiting the rules gives me hope that we're going to see some very interesting dynamics that are going to really balance the playing field and maybe avoid or make the decision to take a double a lot harder. And they've already mentioned a couple of ways. So we already know that in the current game, you get to move the first predatory aimless spell if you go second. That's not going to stop me from going to double. But what they have mentioned in some of the discussions, Ben Johnson mentioned this, is that when you go second, you're going to get more command points. So it sounds like there's going to be more command points or more core command points available to us, which will mean that I'll have more to burn. And if they bring in a more 40k style command point generation, then it will incentivize us to go for as many command points as possible and maybe not go for that double turn. We might start seeing more scenarios introduced where the person who goes second can gain more victory points, burn an objective, choose which objective is the primary as opposed to some of them that are secondary and that are worth less points. It is really hard to tell exactly how they have changed. And, 9th edition 40k has seen a lot of success. I'm not a 40k player, but for all of my friends who play, they love this new edition. They're just big fans of it. So which makes me wonder if they've learned from the lessons of 9th edition 40k. Is there some things that are going to be brought in? Not copy and paste. I don't think they're going to copy and paste because I don't think the rules translate perfectly. But there are some interesting rules that might come into play. The fact that some terrain is called obscuring terrain that allows you that automatically blocks line of sight on the first level or blocks line of sight. So it means that, there's a little window in a house, you can't shoot through it, which could be really good, especially in some of these, the current meta, which has a lot of shooting or maybe is a bit too powerful. Things like the way that you score victory points. I believe from memory that you now score your 40k victory points. So when you score from the battle plan, it happens at the end of the hero phase or before the movement phase. I believe it's like hero, movement, psychic, shooting, charge, combat. So either way, it's not at the end of your turn. It sounds like you've got to hold it until your next hero phase, which is a fascinating mechanic. they may introduce that. I'm not saying they are, but it could be. The table sizes certainly did shrink a little bit in the new 9th 40k. So, but another one that I'm hoping and praying that they revisit is Inspiring Presence, and automatically passing a battle shock with 1 command point. Maybe when that was first introduced, which was Age of Sigmar 1, the only person who could use a command ability was your general. So now that every hero can use Inspiring Presence, it's a little bit out of control. So who knows what they're gonna rewrite? Again, if there's some rules that you would love rewritten in the core rules, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think needs to be rewritten. But the other one that they mentioned was that battalions are going to change. They're going to change probably quite significantly, and I think it was Ben Johnson or Jesse was mentioning that the mechanics of battalions they've noticed and acknowledged the difference between battle tomes when it comes to battalions. As a Gargant player, I have no battalions. There's no natural way for me to get an extra command point, reduce my drops, to get myself an extra command point. I don't have that ability. Cities of Sigmar, another army that I play a lot, their battalions are so restrictive, it's not funny. And then when I look across the table and I see a Disciples of Tzeentch player with the change host, they can literally put almost anything in that change host and reduce their drops down to 1. So fundamentally, there is a massive problem when it comes to battalions, and they have acknowledged that it needs to change. So it sounds like what they're doing is, and I'm using a 40k screenshot here because we don't know too much just yet, but it sounds like there is going to be these core battalions that may look like a 40k, it might not. It may not cost a CP, we don't know yet. But the way that the core battalions work is that they're across different armies, so everyone can get access, and there might be who knows how many. And, one of them might be 1 hero and 3 unit choices, or one could be 1 hero, 2 monsters, or it could be 3 heroes and 4 war machines. Who knows? They'll have a bunch of them available to us, and it'll just be across the board for everybody. And, and the abilities will be standardized across the board. It's probably a lot easier to manage the power levels compared to some of the battalions out there that are just crazy broken. And that change then got me thinking, well, if they did do these core battalions, and they have said they're doing core battalions, what does that do to things like additional artifacts, additional command points, being able to reduce your drops? Will they all come about through these core battalions, or are these abilities going to be thrown away? Who knows? But like I said, I don't think they're going to copy and paste from 40k detachments, because I don't think you can, but I think they will borrow from some of the ideas that make it work. And that was kind of like my initial thoughts on what I've seen so far. And I've seen some interesting discussions. I know there's a lot of, rumors and ideas being thrown around. I'm only working off the facts on what we've seen so far, which has been the Warhammer Fest. And I know that there'll be more information being shared over, I guess, the lead up until Age of Sigmar 3. And if I was putting my line in the sand, I would imagine, much like the last 2 editions, we'll see it drop in the start or the middle of July. I imagine there might be a 2-week preview window, a 2-week pre-order window. So maybe it'll go for sale in the end of June. Who knows? But I'm excited to see and unpack all of the rules and see what's changed. And I think it was Ben Johnson or Jesse had mentioned in the video that the way that you look at your army is going to be different. And I imagine that it's not going to be just picking up your current army and just trying to find it in AOS 3. I imagine things that aren't very good right now might get a massive boost. Things that are super powerful right now might get a bit of a tap on the shoulder, and maybe not as powerful as it currently is. And I think, to me, that excitement is going to be awesome. And as you would imagine, on a channel like AOS Coach, I will try to break down and help you all as much as possible on your journey adapting to a new edition. And I know for some of you, you haven't been on that journey in the past. I have gone through many edition changes, whether it was Fantasy Battles or Sigmar. So we'll do this together. And if you do have any questions, any ideas, again, pop it down in the description. And if you are interested in talking more about this, I've got a pretty awesome Discord that's been kind of breaking this down and talking and list teching. Link down below. Go check out the Discord and we'll chat more. But I hope this was valuable. And more importantly, I really do want to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. But fingers crossed, give me more info. I want to know more about this. I hope you found that discussion valuable. If you did, give the video the old thumbs up. And if you have a comment or an insight, leave it in the comment section below. The champions over here are my AOS Coach Patreons and YouTube members. So you guys are bloody legends. Thank you for all the support. If you want to know more about the support programs, the links are below down here in the episode description, along with a link to the Discord server, so we can continue this conversation. Until next time, don't forget to name your characters and have a good one.